Welcome to your hip mobility routine. This is a series of movements designed to enhance hip mobility, supporting hip health and lower back health. I suggest doing this once to twice a day and integrating into part of a routine. This is also a really effective warm-up prior to doing any exercises. Now, there are no specific sets or reps for this. Instead, really dial in with each movement, enhancing that brain-body connection, and do as many repetitions as you feel is required for each of the movements. Now, towards the end, there are some single leg balance type of movements. Now, that can be a bit challenging if you have issues with your balance. So either work your way towards that, find an appropriate support, or it might be better just to leave those ones out altogether. Alrighty, so to start, we have our feet are about shoulder width apart. We're going to use our hands on top of our hips to feel our hips and pelvis move. For the majority of these movements, we're going to focus on keeping our ribs stacked over our pelvis and stability through our lower back and our core. So hands on the hips, the first movement is a pelvic tilt. So we're going to tilt our pelvis all the way one way. We're going to tuck our pelvis all the way under. We're going to find the end ranges that we have, and we're going to work in a controlled and smooth fashion to move from a forwards to a backwards pelvic tilt. Then we're going to move on to some side bends. So we're going to crunch down on one side as we open up on the other side. Now, as I'm doing this, you can see my heel is coming off the floor, shifting my weight across as I'm crunching down one side and opening and lengthening the other side. As you work left to right, you can get a bit of a bend through here as well, so you can raise your arm up as you do so. Now, following that, we're going to go into a hinge. So find a comfortable stance. Again, ribs stacked nicely over our pelvis, keeping a rigid lower back and core as we're hinging, folding through the front of our hips. As we do this, we're shifting our weight slightly backwards as we bend backwards. And as we come up, we're pushing our hips forward. So you can use your hands in the front of your hips to feel that fold happening. Otherwise, you can allow your arms to run down the front of your legs. So when you do this, imagine you've got two lemons under your arms. So you're keeping your arms there, you're pushing your weight slightly backwards, and you're pushing upwards. Now from here, we're going to actually go into some lumbar lower back flexion. If this aggravates any lower back symptoms, just avoid this one, but it is okay to flex your lower back in a controlled way without load. So we're just going to round forwards. You can spend a moment here if you like. Soften your knees and coming back up. You're going to slowly round forwards, softening your knees and then coming back up. Now we're going to go into a slightly wider stance. Hinge, similar to what we did a moment ago. We're going to hinge, let our arms come forwards. Now, as we get to the end, our weight is slightly shifted backwards. In this position, our hips are going to slightly internally rotate. So allow that to happen. As you come up, driving your hips forwards, allow your hips to slightly externally rotate as you come to the top. Again, we're keeping nice control over our lower back area, primarily focusing on hinging from the hips. This is also going to help to open the inside of your thighs as well. Now, slightly wider with your stance, we're going to go into an ice skater. So we're going to shift our weight across, reaching to the opposite toe, rotating through our thoracic spine, rotating through our hips. So as I come this way, my right hip's going to want to internally rotate, my left hip's going to want to externally rotate. So allow that to happen, reach to the opposite toe, and work left and right. You can even spend a few moments in this position, just play around with your hips, play around with stretching through your legs there too. The next movement is we're going to imagine we've got a pole coming straight through us. We're going to go underneath the pole. So we're going to rotate through our hips, keeping this nice and stacked, controlled through here, primarily moving from the hips. We're going to come under the pole and we're going to open up to the opposite side. We're going to open up to the front of our hips. So spend a few moments here, just playing around. We're going to soften, we're going to come under the pole, we're going to pop out the other side, opening up to the front of our hips. And again, we're going to come under and open up the front of the hips. Now the next movements are the single leg balance ones. So these ones might be a little bit more challenging. To start with, we're going to bring our knee across the front of our body, and open up. Going across and open up. Again, this is going to work your core as well to keep your trunk nice and rigid. And then we're going to do the opposite. Come out and then across. Come out and then across. If you need some support, make sure you've got some support with these ones. Now the next one is a 3-point stance. So from here, we're going to reach forwards, we're going to reach backwards and diagonally, and then we're going to reach behind our leg. This is really important as it allows your hips to drop, opening up on one side before coming back to the midline. Reach forwards, diagonally back, and behind the leg, working both sides. As this becomes easier, work more distance. Now the final one is an aeroplane. So this is the most challenging for your balance there as well. So use the support if you need it. I'll show you what it looks like with the support. From the side, we're doing a single leg hinge. So I'm using some support here. I'm hinging backwards with one leg. I'm stretching the back of my leg, which is on the ground. I'm opening up through my hips, and then I'm dropping my hips down before coming back to the middle. So again, I'm hinging single leg backwards. I'm opening through my hips, and then I'm dropping through my hips. As you become more proficient with this, try without the support, just to train your balance more. Dropping and opening. So that's your hip mobility routine. Take your time again in working through this. And if you get stuck at any point or if you have any questions, always make sure you check in with us.